So this your episode is canon with the rest of the universe, the Boys universe?
Yeah, well, the episode I co-directed that Simon wrote is blessed by Eric as a canon episode. It's apparently now officially Homelander's backstory, or at least part of his backstory.
Is any of this going to translate into season 3?
That's a good question. So I don't know for sure, but it would be cool if there was a little bit of like glimpses or something. Or maybe a little ridiculous if like you cut to like Anthony Starr and then like he has flashbacks to animated, memories of his past. But yeah, that would be really cool if we got some sense of that at some point. They kept me in the dark though. Like I don't know a ton about season 3, and I maybe for the better, only because I want to watch it and have fun with everyone else.
Are there any characters from Diabolical that you would like to see be brought into live action?
That's a great one. I mean, it would be cool. Like, so Nubian Prince did appear in the pilot episode, but he's just sort of like on the news for like a second. And like I think now that I've sat with those characters for so long, it'd be cool to see him and Nubia, in an episode for sure. I think that one pops to my mind pretty quickly. Some of the other ones are a little, harder to picture. Like I'm not sure, but like Booby Face or something, would be so weird. I actually, there's the Love Sausage character that's in the show. So I suppose anything's possible.
Where's your love for this genre in general come from? You've done so many projects, man. Like, where does it come from?
That's a great question. I mean, I just sort of go towards whatever interests me. It sounds like such a vague question, but like, if it's a video game that's out that I'm super into, I'm all about that. If it's, The Sopranos, I'm super into that. I'm the guy who goes to like the indie section at the comic book shop and gets a lot of indie stuff. I'm always sort of looking for less mainstream stories, but then I tend to work on mainstream stuff. So maybe there's something there where like I like the more smaller personal stories, and I try to like put that into an average episode of Green Lantern or The Boys or whatever. Sure. But yeah, it's a mix of just my interests, but I'm definitely a tried and true like animation guy, comic guy, video game player. That's my interests.
Heck yeah.
On that note, how did you approach the 1.5 episodes that you specifically worked on?
So that's cool. So we had started production, and the first 2 scripts that were like ready to go was Garth Ennis's one, which was Your Pusher, and the Justin Roiland Ben Bayouth one, which is I always forget the title of that one, of the fucked up one where Soups kill their parents or something like that. And we hadn't even hired all the directors yet. So it gave me a good excuse to direct episode 1, which later became episode 3. And I was kind of selfishly picked that one because I really love Homelander, or excuse me, I really love Butcher. I love Homelander for different reasons, but I really love Butcher, and I was like, just really wanted to do like there was, the opening of that episode was about 7 pages of script of just Butcher kind of like bullying OD. I was like, yeah, I want to do like a Butcher scene. So I chose that. And I think that after I had kind of like started drawing, like Simon and I were sitting in a meeting, and Simon goes, oh, by the way, this one is an homage to the comics. You know that, right? And I was like, no. I just thought it was cool that Garth wrote it, but I didn't know that we had to craft it as an homage to the comics. So there was a little bit of like erasing Butcher's beard, in my drawings, but it ended up being a fun challenge. It's not the first time that I've adapted a comic, and so that was just another cool, feather in my cap, I guess,
If there is a season 2, is there another character from the live action or the comics that you would like to tackle?
Oh, that's a good question. I was kind of surprised Starlight wasn't in this at all. I really like her. I think like her and Huey are sort of like the two that you're sort of like pining for them to be like a sense of good in this very dark, cynical world. So that would be fun to sort of like see her, maybe her and Huey do something together. Yeah, I don't know, for some reason that popped in my head immediately.
How's working on this versus the Dragon Prince and your other projects that I love that are more family friendly, I guess you could say?
Oh yeah, so that's a great question. Like I've spent my career doing mostly children's entertainment. It's not necessarily by choice. It's kind of like what pays the bills in this town. I'm often one of the people in the room that's like, guys, can we just make this a little edgier? Or, we don't, I think the main thing is I don't want to talk down to kids. And I think that's, dare I say, part of the secret, formula to making great entertainment is not to talk down to your audience. This was very different in that it was like no holds barred, and if anything, I was the one now insecure that like, are we pushing this too far? Can we get away with this? This is like a lot, So that was a mental shift. I definitely wanted to make sure that it felt in tone with the boys. I think I wouldn't have been doing my job correctly if I would have toned it down, so I wanted to make sure I was keeping pace with the series. And I figured, to Amazon's credit and, kind of our collective executives, if we did cross a line, I'm sure they would have said, we might want to like pull this one just a little bit. But for the most part, this series was not about that. It was push it. Yeah.
Do you feel, I said previous, with all the violence that is pushed on the boys, live action, animation, do you feel that in an animated world, it makes it so much more palatable for people to witness this violence?
That's an interesting question, because one of the things that I've found, I've said this before, is I've never been terrified of a cartoon. It's interesting because there's people who say they have been. But I've watched some movies where I was like, I don't know that I want to finish this. Like you're just like getting like the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. So there's clearly something a little, softer or safer about animation. We were trying to overcome that, especially on the gore scenes. But there's a certain point where like there's only so much more blood I can add to the shot. I told our designers, for example, like when that poor woman gets her jaw ripped off, I was like, I'm not going to insist that anyone pull reference to draw this. And I'm not going to check it either. I have no desire to do that. I'm actually quite squeamish in that way. So it's like, as long as it sort of feels correct, let's just go with that,
Can you? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, since you've got, someone like Seth Rogen making calls to creators, and you've got to have so many amazing ones in the first season, if you get another season, is there anyone you'd like to call to?
Oh, man.
Let's make that the last question, okay? Thanks.
Yeah, so, gosh, who would I, like, what would be fun? Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank. It's funny because they gave us this list of celebrities that are fans of the boys, and that was kind of part of the, like, just so these people, you might want to reach out for, like, to do a voice or something. And one of the more surprising ones was President Obama. So I was like, imagine if he wrote one. That'd be sort of an odd, exploration. So I don't know. That's my weird answer to your question.
I support it.
Real quick, can you talk about the process of whittling down a story to get the most punch in a 10 to 12 minute window?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of part of the business. Like, most scripts end up a little long and then they have to be edited. Most animatics, most episodes end up a little long and they have to be edited. I try to tell myself that it's good that happens, because it forces you to pick only the best scenes and only the best lines and only the best jokes. But it's usually a painful process. There's a lot of like, I really miss that joke, but I guess it's sort of redundant with the other joke we just said, so I guess we'll kill it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Your episode, Eric, you told me that that's canon in the universe, right? Did
Yes.
you set out starting to write something that was going to be canon?
So for my episode, since I was also showrunning and producing it, I always knew I was going to write one of the 7 episodes. one of the 8 episodes. I waited till all the other episode slots were filled because I wanted to know a feel for like what kind of content we had. Were we leaning really comedic? Were we leaning really dramatic, really serious? And I thought I could come in and do maybe something that we hadn't seen before. So when we got to the other 7 episodes sort of like in at script stage, I realized that we had a good blend of comedic and dramatic, and I started talking to Eric about that, and he's like, oh man, I wish someone had really done an episode like about like Homelander's first mission or like early on. I was like, then that's what I will do. So then I was just talking with Eric to make sure the canonicalness of it was correct, and kind of nerve-wracking writing a script for Eric Kripke in his universe, in his world, about his characters, and trying to get that right. So yeah, I was really happy when he was pleased with it. That was a great day. I was very happy that he enjoyed it.
How much leeway do they actually give you inside your dialogue? What were you allowed to do, and how far can you go?
Well, again, Eric was like, go as far as you want. He kept on pushing us to go further. I mean, in terms of like gore and stuff like that, he was the biggest one. He was like, it needs more blood, it needs more organs, let's just go further. But in terms of content, again, it was pretty open. I mean, The Boys pushes those boundaries about as far as they can go. And Amazon is a great partner. They really never pulled us back. So we had kind of free reign. There was almost no rules. It was mostly about what can we actually produce in 10 months. So what actually is produced. That was our one constraint. Was like, we have to make it. We actually have to get it done in a reasonable time frame without anybody dying.
So I liked how you sort of filled in his backstory. What episode did you sort of use as a leaping board to figure out that he wanted to be good at first, and then he kind of got pushed into the other direction?
That came out of 2 different things. One was just talking to Eric about the character, and just sort of like, because obviously there's a Homelander of the comics, I've read all the comics, but the Homelander of the show was slightly different. It's his version of it, so it was just about talking to him. And then the other thing is just my belief that nobody's born evil. You're built out of your environments and your experiences and how you're treated. And I thought that would be interesting to explore with Homelander. So even a character like that. But like, if you were raised by Vought, how would you come out? You come out terrible, right? So it was about having a little fun exploring that.
Are there any characters from Diabolical that you'd like to see in the live-action voice?
Well, I mean, the jokey answer is I want to see Areola in the live-action voice. Awkwafina's little, poop. Yeah, I mean, I would love it to cross. I think it would be great if John and Sun Hee showed up in the back of some Vought episode, like she's escaped, even if it's just a reference somewhere, So that would be wonderful.
On the flip side, if you get a second season, are there other aspects of Vought or the universe of The Boys that you would like to incorporate into this side of things?
Sure. I think what I'd like to say, the promise of Diabolical, is that we don't repeat ourselves and we do something new every single season. It's a grab bag, right? So the whole thing is it shouldn't be the same as season 1. So I'd like to just go further, explore other aspects of Vought. I mean, there's international superheroes. I mean, obviously the show is focused mostly around North America, like New York. It'd be great to do some stories from other parts of the world, because I think Vought International has some pretty long, has a long reach in the world of The Boys. It'd be great to do some stuff like what's happening in Australia, what's happening in Asia, what's happening with Vought somewhere else. I'd love to do that.
Since your episode is canon, does any of this information, or if not yours, does any of the other episodes, does any of this information translate to season 3?
That'd be a good question. You should ask Eric. I think, I'd like to think that they're, symbiotic. Our season and their season, obviously they're the mothership show. We sort of, they lead, we follow. But I'd like to hope that some of this comes back and, affects them in season 3 and season 4 going forwards.
In an episode like John and Sun Hee, how important it is to show that Vaught's reach is actually even hurting innocent people who have nothing want to do with heroes or villains.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's like this huge corporation. They make lunchboxes, they have restaurants, they have Vought-A-Burger, they make supplements, they deliver groceries. Like, the idea is that I think probably if you live in the world of The Boys, unless you're in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, Vought has some influence on your life in probably not the best way. Like, you probably don't want Vought groceries. You probably don't want Vought supplements, but you probably have no choice because they own the market. So, yeah, it's kind of a fun dystopia to explore in that sense.
Each episode looked a little bit different as far as the art. Were you able to have any feedback on how your episode looked?
Oh yeah, well yeah, because I was the showrunner of the series. I was absolutely part of like all the visual development all the way through. We're the directing team. Like we had 8 fantastic directors on all our episodes, and they're the ones who really brought each episode to life. But I'm lucky enough in my role to be part of like hiring those directors, and then also being there to see that whole process and sort of like guide it as much as I can, while not screwing it up either. We're just sort of like making sure that they all sort of work and follow the creative vision we want with every episode.
Were there any episodes that posed particularly interesting challenges in terms of bringing that concept to life, or in terms of collaboration process?
They all came along pretty smoothly. I think the biggest challenge for us was just that we had about 10 months to do it. So normally on a normal production schedule of any other type of show, you have a show in pre-production, a show in production, a show in an episode in pre-production, episode in production, episode in post-production, and you kind of finish one episode and then you can work on the next one. So like you put episodes away. Ours, because we had so little time, we're all doing all the stages all at the same time. So we had almost all of our episodes in pre-production at the same time, all of our episodes in production, and all of them in post at the same time. So it just turned out to be an excessive amount of work because we were trying to cram it into a very small timeline.
With all the people you got to work with, talent-wise, what went into picking what you guys actually used?
For writers or for a cast?
Both.
We tried to find the people who we thought would be best for the role. Honestly, it was a lot of sitting around brainstorming. We had an excellent casting director for our cast named Linda LaMontagne, who also casts Invincible with me and does a fantastic job. And it would just be conversations about like who would be great for this role, and we'd make lists and talk about it, and then we make offers. We go out and we try and find those people. But it's not willy-nilly. It just takes time and thinking about it. And for the writers, we went out to people whose work we had admired, whose creativity we admired, and who we thought would be interested in doing a short film set in the world of the boys, and we just started making calls. And it sort of helps when you have, Seth Rogen's making those calls too.
I mean, it doesn't help when you're friends with lots of people.
Yeah, exactly, right. So that opens a lot of doors for us. Yeah.
What do you think the animation medium brings to this superhero genre that live action may not quite be able to capture?
Scope, I think, is a big one. Obviously, Diabolical or Invincible, to do either of those shows live action, the budget would have to be ridiculous. It would be too high to do on, even with budgets like you see on Game of Thrones and other big shows. I just feel like we would have to change the subject matter so much to fit Invincible into a TV show if it wasn't animated. Then animation was really the only medium to use to tell that story and do it properly. So I think that's what it allows you to do is do a truer adaptation of certain materials than you could do if you had to do a live action.
Does the animation make a lot? Do you think it makes some of the violence that does happen in the series? It's very gory. I mean, of course, live action, the boys push the gore.
Yeah.
Does it make it a lot easier to digest for the viewer? Do you think?
I think so. That's a really good question. I feel like if you did have the budget and you took a couple of Diabolical episodes, or you took episodes of Invincible and you shot those live action, I think they might be unpalatable. Like you may not, they would just be grotesque horror. But because we were able to do it animated, there's a little bit more detachment between them that lets you take it in a different way. I mean, this is probably a question for some psychologists to actually really dig into an answer, but I feel like you can watch something that's animated and you perceive it in a different way than if it's live action. And probably someone much smarter than me could answer that question on a better level, but that's my sort of read on it. So it lets us, push the limits a little further than you could in live action.
Actually, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much.